Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for making time to join us this afternoon. We're excited to bring you another thought-provoking and insightful webinar, our first civil talk for 2023, in fact. And we want to just unpack the opportunities and challenges that are faced in the redefining of human settlements, which is quite different to how we know things to be at present. I'm not alone. I'm with a panel that I'll introduce shortly, along with my colleague, Sibongile, who is going to keep letting people in the lobby as we go through the session. We've got about 65 people so far and growing, and the others will join us as we go. So our aim is to start and finish the session on time. We're just going to be putting minds together and sharing knowledge on what's already being done in bettering our country. And the business of the day is human settlements, as I mentioned before. Underpinning this, of course, is the encompassing and inclusion of megacity development thinking and the opportunities that exist in the effective implementation of this. We'd like to thank RIB CCS for sponsoring our civil talk today and for being a valued supporter of SAICE through sponsoring most of our webinars, including our student webinars as well. So at this juncture, I'd like to invite Neil Naidu, who is a representative from RIB, to come in and give us a short address before we begin the discussion. So let me hand over to you, Neil. I can see your camera and I see you unmuted. You can just share your screen and take us on. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And obviously, it's a great privilege for RIB CCS to be associated with SAICE, as it has been for a number of years. You guys may know us as RIB CCS, but very recently we've rebranded to RIB, just RIB or RIB. But we felt, for the purposes of this presentation, just to keep the old branding for that sake of familiarity. So what's happened over the last couple of years is that construction computer software that we all know and love has passed ownership from a South African entity to RIB, which is headquartered in Stuttgart and Hong Kong. And subsequent to that, RIB was fully acquired by Schneider Electric. You guys may know Schneider Electric very well. It's a massive organization with a 20 billion euro balance sheet, 165,000 employees across the world. And in terms of that, we've basically in the last space of 4 years gone from South African to German, Chinese, and now we're a French company. So just a little bit about us is that obviously we started out in South Africa. Candy, which was the original product, was developed by Marion Roberts. Peter Reynolds was a project manager there, and at that point in time, Marion Roberts had its fingers in a lot of different things. It was very diversified. But eventually, Candy was spun off, or construction computer software was spun off as its own business, and it has progressed to many different parts of the world, primarily where the British sort of traditional contracting system takes precedence. You talk about a BOQ, separate consultant and contractor environment, and that's where we are very relevant and add a lot of value. And in terms of the participants who we serve, we serve everybody across the construction lifecycle, and you can see here from estimators to executives. In terms of SAICE and its role, or the value that it can get from our products, whether you're on the contracting side as a civil engineer or whether you're on the consulting side managing progress and quality, we believe that our products can add value. And in terms of the industries that we operate in, again, it's not confined to a specific niche in construction. We are in the MEP sector, the marine sector, mining sector, And, with specific regard to human settlements, I'm a quantity surveyor by trade. I left the industry for CCS in 2019, but before that, I did a few housing projects. And our primary tool to track financial and how can I call it, schedule during those projects was Candy. And, in terms of the outcomes we want from these human settlement projects, it's, as a contractor, you want to execute on time, you want to execute within the required quality standard, and you also want to execute within, the allowable or the tendered cost, so you can make a profit. Not only that, a successful human settlement project also means that our people in the community need to have an equitable share in that work, and skills development and opportunity for them to also for lack of a better word, make some kind of some money doing some of the work on the project. So Candy can also, assist with understanding, what components of the projects can be subcontracted out to our community, to our people, and the rates at which that we can obviously do that at. In terms of key projects across the years, you guys will know most of these projects. Candy and Build Smart have basically been a part of any major project conducted locally, and in all of the projects that you see here internationally. If you look at a road or a World Cup stadium, there was Candy and Build Smart. And in terms of our clients and partnerships, this is just a snapshot of of some of the people that we serve. And it's not confined to these massive organizations. Our products are relevant from your very small, contracting or consulting organizations all the way up to, the WBHOs, DevStocks, etc. So, I think that most of you do know the value add of Candy. Primarily, it is an estimating tool. 80% of our user base use it to price and tender, and maybe check your valuation, your allowable from valuation thereafter. But its main purpose was to estimate in granular detail from a resource level, and also to minimize errors and make the estimating process much faster. And some of the things that Candy delivers over and above your traditional Excel spreadsheet, can be seen on this slide. And yeah, it is the gold standard in the South African market, and we believe in any market, again, where the BOQ system takes precedence. If you are still using Excel for your tendering and estimating purposes, I encourage you to get in contact with us, and we can, do a workshop with you to show you the benefits of migrating to Candy. So, I've spoken about some of the other products we offer, primarily Build Smart. It's a very familiar ERP accounting system within the construction or the construction industry. But something that we've moved into recently is data aggregation, which is basically taking all of the data that sits in your Candy and Build Smart systems and combining that into a data warehouse where you can, have access to powerful data, powerful dashboards, and business intelligence-driven analytics. So that product is called Connect, and it's not very well known in our industry. We're still trying to get, awareness out there and make inroads. But again, for those of you who have established Candy and Build Smart systems in place, again, would encourage you to reach out to us to understand a little bit more about Connect, because it is the next level of what is required in our industry, which is basically to aggregate all the data we have, and we have so much of it, into a single place to help us make better decisions. Okay, and again, we don't want to be running a whole lot of reports or printing out to get it. You want to be able to click a button and get a very specific targeted dashboard that allows you to access that information. Again, the relevance, when we talk about human settlements, is that there are specific metrics by which these projects are measured by the consultants, by the client, which is the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. And, Connect has the ability to, use bespoke dashboarding to deliver those dashboards to the various participants, from the contractor all the way up to the client. In terms of Candy, again, very familiar product, estimating, planning, and project control. We can do quantity takeoff, estimating, planning, forecasting, and cash flow valuations and subcontract management. And finally, the outcome, from looking at your ledger and your allowable from Candy will be cost and allowable. I want to just talk about planning for a while, and specifically to our civil engineering consultants in the room. Primarily we have used Microsoft. You guys have used Microsoft Project and Primavera to monitor schedule performance on your projects. You probably are aware that we offer a fully featured scheduling and planning solution as well. It can speak to, it can import and export to and from Microsoft Project and Primavera, and we believe it is the best scheduling system out there. Again, if you're looking for an alternative to what you're using, I would encourage you to reach out to us so we can show you the capability. And these are just some of the benefits of using some of our solutions. Not all of these are obviously relevant to everybody, depending on whether you're in the contracting or the consulting space. But in terms of Candy, you're going to get that increased accuracy, increased speed of estimating. And that's, probably the best thing you can have as a contractor, because we need to do sometimes, like, I think 30 estimates per month now to win just one. And when you're doing that kind of volume, you need a solution that's gonna, obviously do it quickly, but also accurately. This is something that, we find traditional spreadsheets like Excel do not deliver. In terms of the ERP accounting, again, BillSmart will deliver that click of a button comparison, cost and allowable, overview of all your purchase orders from a procurement perspective, payroll, etc. So again, the foundation is just getting Candy right in your business, importing that Excel BOQ that you get from your consultant. You can either then from there do a manual entry in terms of pricing, or look at the Candy master library, and then from there you can progress to QTO if you do win the job, or you want to carry out a measure of whatever drawings are provided at tender, just to check the accuracy of the bill. And some of the other things that we offer over and above these products are training. We offer consulting, one-on-one consulting with you if you need to address any aspect of the commercial or planning side of your business. We have BillSmart user groups for our clients, Candy user seminars, free monthly webinars. And again, the business intelligence and all of our products come with, a high degree of support. So yeah, in closing, I want to thank again SAICE for this opportunity to partner with them over a number of years. And yeah, for anybody who is interested in taking the technology or in their solutions to the next step, I encourage you to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neil. Really appreciate the overview and for making time. And thanks again to RIB now for the support as well. Thanks a lot. So I think moving forward, I didn't do this earlier, but by way of introduction, for those who don't know me, my name is Nthabeleng Lentsoane. If you want to turn your video off, Neil, you can do so. Thank you. I head up marketing and PR at SAICE National Office. If you've ever wondered what this is about, it's think it's basically to create synergies really in relationships and just to support strategic implementation between SAICE and the various stakeholders. So whether those be divisions, branches, student chapters, business and industry elements, that's what myself and Sibo do. So our speakers are seasoned experts that we've the opportunity to hear from, and I'll go through both of their brief bios. First of all, we have Vusi Tshabalala. Vusi has held various roles in his career with a few institutions, and currently he holds a position as Director of Strategic Planning at the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. He's responsible for the development of the departmental plans, key among them being the 5-year strategy of the department. Prior to joining the department, he was Senior Manager of Business Development at CASA Accounting and technical sector. So in this role, he's worked with several industry players in human settlements, ranging from private sector, municipalities, and government entities as well. Vusi also had a stint in his previous life at the Development Bank of South Africa, as well as the South African Human Rights Commission as a researcher. He holds several degrees from Wits University, amongst which include a postgrad in Public Policy and Development Administration. He also has a master's degree in Development Finance with the University of Stellenbosch, that is the Stellenbosch Business School. So welcome, Vusi. Thank you so much for making time to join us this afternoon. Our second speaker is Dlozi Mnisi. He's a construction project manager at the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. And SAICE's own Dlozi Mnisi has a career spanning multiple organizations and also experience over 9 years relating to program management of housing and infrastructure projects. Dlozi has a national diploma and BTech in Civil Engineering from the Lentsoane University of Technology. He is a registered candidate construction project manager with the South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Professions, aka SACP-CMP. When Dlozi is not galvanizing support for SAICE young professionals as the current chairperson of the SAICE Future Leaders Panel, he's also served at CESA under the South Gauteng Young Professional Forum Committee. So thank you, Dlozi, for making time to join us this afternoon. And let me just hand over to you now to take us through the dialogue. And I believe you'll tag team your session with Vusi, but you'll let us know how you want to handle the next few minutes. Before you do that, Dlozi, though, let me ask all of our guests, please do engage with us. You'll see that your mic and your video is disabled for now, but please put any questions that you have throughout the presentation in the chat box, and we'll answer this at the end during the designated Q&A session. We also give you the option, if you'd like to ask your question verbally, all you can do at the end of the session is just raise your hand and we'll enable your mic at the end of the session. So that's housekeeping done with. Dlozi, please feel free to take us on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nthabeleng. That was a beautiful introduction. And I would like to say, I think it's an honor for us to be invited. You did indicate that I am employed by the Department of Human Settlements and also serving as the SAICE FLP chairperson. So from the department's perspective, what we actually, I think on the back of our conversation, in the interest of wanting to share the vision that the department has holistically, we found that it would be beneficial for us to engage. We see this as also us having to engage the public, but also the professional space to give off what the department is doing, because these services that we're providing are for South Africans at large. So within this presentation, myself, I will be covering the projects that we've engaged in. And then Vusi will be then taking us through the policy structure that the department has taken. As you have understood that the government in place currently has had quite a number of policies around human settlements. So that will be the structure of our presentation today. But also I cannot voice this out, also serving as a chair for FLP. I do understand that there probably are quite a number of young people within the space. I would like to also continuously encourage them to participate within such spaces, attending network talks like this, and also within their individual spaces. So with that said, I will give over to Vusi to take us through the human settlements policy program on mega city development. Thanks.
Thanks, Dlozi. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to Nthabeleng as well for a kind and lovely introduction. Yeah, I hope I'm audible enough to everyone.
Yes,
I'm just. Thanks, Nthabeleng. Yeah, I just need to put up the presentation quickly so that it guides our talk this afternoon, so that then we are not all over. We just stick to the brief. All right, thanks. Thanks, Dlozi, for the introduction of the presentation. Of course, I'm going to take you through the policy developments around the mega projects. Now, the mega projects concept was introduced in 2015 in the department, right? Remember where we're coming from. We're coming from a history whereby there was a backlog in the country, now that we had a democratic government back in 1994. So then at the time, you notice that it was all about chasing numbers, right? We just wanted production all the way on the ground. Now, if you look on the screen, you do have the national program, the vision, that's the first column. So the time horizon between 1994 and 2008 in the policy arena, you do have the Tshabalala Accord, the RDP, as you can see it. Funny that our housing units are called RDPs, for instance. So that's where it's coming from. That's a reconstruction and development program. You also had the GEAR from the economic policy point of view. That's the growth, employment, and redistribution, if some of you do recall those times. But then swiftly to 2009, 2011 time horizon, you do have the new growth path. And then 2011 up until now, the key policy driving our work as government is the National Development Plan, but also not just as government, but across the sectors in the country. So to speak, the private sector, and then that makes the entire country. It's the NDP, the National Development Plan 2030 vision. Right, so now if you look there, as I've said, under that column, the second column on the left, 1994, 2008, like I said, it's just mass production, a whole lot of housing units. You saw that all over, right? But you do have some pockets, you do have some pockets, or you did have some pockets of viable, socially and economically integrated communities situated in some areas which did have access to economic opportunities, health, educational, and social amenities. But you'll recall that some of them were not. They didn't have that luxury. They were just deployed sporadically on pieces of land because we were chasing numbers as government. There was pressure to produce these housing units. And then over time, we have improved. As I've said, that in 2015, then there was a change in the policy and implementation trajectory by the department to say, look, hence then, if you noticed, we started changing the name as well in the recent past to say we are not just the Gauteng Department of Housing, but the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. Now, this slide just speaks to what I've just described to you, the micro project, the sporadic project across the land, which was characterized by, among other things, lack of coordination, tenure form and or housing product that were not suitable for the demand per area, for example. And in some cases, you didn't have the primary infrastructure, you didn't have the social and economic amenities as we have on our projects today. Now, that resulted in some of those developments, for instance, with a whole lot of increased service delivery protest as substandard housing products. So some of the contractors, okay, they produce that. So obviously something happened with our project management as a department. You also had, of course, you'll always have this, the increase in housing backlog. Then, unfortunately, you also found enclaves of dilapidated areas, which were characterized by grime and crime. All those negative things, as you can see on the pictures, for example. Now, as I've said, now there was this radical shift in our strategy as a department to say, look, now the paradigm needs to change. So we started here to say that per annum as a department, as per the mega project concept, we want to produce at least 15,000 units per annum. But remember, in doing that, we needed to ensure that there were social and economic amenities. We needed to ensure that these settlements were closer to places of work and places with economic opportunities. It's easier said than done. It's very tough. At the moment, you'll understand and agree with me that the advent of load shedding isn't making this easier at all for all of us. So we have to battle with that. Let's see what's going to happen. We do have a new Minister of Electricity. We're hoping for some changes there. So now, as a concept, that is the mega projects and their implementation, that includes the management of current and new projects. In other words, we needed to find a way strategically to blend the two. That is the current, the sporadic projects, or the projects that were within developed in the past. Now incorporate those into the mega projects so that then they could benefit from the amenities that I have just mentioned, that we planned to have attached to the mega projects. By the way, we call those the legacy projects. So you have to then incorporate the legacy projects into the mega projects so that our settlements could be viable as a province. So now what that meant then, when we started off with the mega projects as a department, we believed in the CCC concept, that is coordination among the different spheres and other role players in the public sector, in the private sector, between ourselves as government and other role players, other government departments and other role players, including the non-governmental sector, for example. So you also needed cooperation from everyone around, because human settlements is everybody's problem in the country, if not the world in its entirety. You also, of course, couldn't do without everybody's collaboration. So that's what we believe in the department, and that's what we are implementing at this point in time. Now, just quickly, it's important just to speak to the profile of our province. Now, we all know that our province, that's Gauteng, is the nation's economic engine. It's the continent's economic engine, so to speak. It's the hub of the economy. Now, Gauteng is a destiny of choice for many job seekers across the country. We know, even from the other African countries, everybody flocks to Gauteng. Everybody flocks to Joburg in particular. So that's why today we do have the challenges that we have of overcrowding at nodal points and all those other negative outcomes that have come with that development or with that stature of this province. Now, also the population growth is accelerating at this point. I remember just a few years ago, Stats SA did say that there were about 12.3 million people in the province. That's about 2-3 years ago. Today, we're talking a whopping 16.1 million people in Gauteng. Now, you know, the infrastructure that we have is not coping at this point with all the population that we have, including in some areas, for instance, the in-migration that we tend to experience as well, of course, in search of job and economic opportunities. Well, about 97% of our province is, of course, urbanized. So also that is a positive thing, but obviously we all know it comes with a whole lot of challenges. Then interestingly, Gauteng has a land mass of about 2%, imagine, of the total land surface of the entire country. So there's smaller space, but a whole lot of people that occupy that space. You can imagine the challenges that we have in dealing with that. So it has the largest, that's the province, largest concentration of metropolitan municipalities. We all know the city of Tshwane, the city of Johannesburg, and Ekurhuleni metropolitan municipalities. Of course, you do have your smaller local municipalities, the district municipalities, for instance, Sidibeng and others. I wouldn't mention all of them. I've spoken to the stats, for instance, yeah. Now, the housing demand, I'm right at the bottom there. The housing demand is always high, right? But then there's also a challenge to say that, look, in terms of the database, it's fluctuating. It's a moving target. That's what we call it. Some people think that the housing demand could be overstated, whilst others think that it could be understated. Now, it's information that we need to keep tabs on in terms of research. Of course, we do have organizations such as the GCR and the Stats SA, which really do help us to come to grips with the correct numbers in as far as that is concerned. However, the demand database is a challenge to manage internally within the department, because you all know there's a whole lot of people that want housing. However, not everybody, for instance, qualifies for the government-sponsored programs. Other people have got to find other means to then obtain housing. Okay, this slide is going blank. I don't understand what's happening here. All right, it's coming. All right. Okay, so what we aim to achieve, of course, we wanted to create productive cities that were inclusive, as it were, but also with good governance. And then we do also want this development of mega projects to be sustainable. We do want our human settlements to be sustainable as a department, and of course, as a province at large. So there are certain characteristics that come with the development of mega projects. I'll speak to that towards the end. So now, in our quest for new cities as a department, but I'll keep on saying as a province as well, because we don't work in isolation. As I said, we work with a number of role players within government, but also outside government, the private sector, as well as the non-governmental sector. So right in terms of the productive cities, economic infrastructure and services, and developing the rates base, for example, now that hinges largely on job creation. I'll speak to job creation as well, so that people are able to pay the taxes and rates, so that then we're able to maintain our infrastructure, but also provide new infrastructure where it's required. At this point in time, just to share with you quickly, some of our developments as a department are scuppered by the lack of bulk infrastructure, electricity being one of them, for instance, water reservoirs, that sort of thing. It's important, you do need those plants. But if people aren't working, for example, then these things cannot be funded. Therefore, they cannot be made available to the public, as we are very much constrained. Now, the current downturn in economic performance just across the globe, not just in the country, but across the globe, isn't making things better for all of us. So you can imagine at the moment what we are going through. Coming to inclusive cities, again, we do strive as government at large to provide pro-poor services and investment infrastructure delivery to the poor. I've spoken to that to say, look, but somebody needs to fund that. The poor at some point also need to stop being poor and have access to economic and job opportunities. And that's what we try and promote as government. So all the parties are very, very critical to the success of the country and not just the province. Quickly talking about good governance, right at the bottom there of my cycle. The management of the process and of participation and regulatory environment of public spaces and institutions, that's very key to us as well as government. We try and involve our communities in our developments. It's an unnegotiable item. It has to happen all the time. That's why you do have the IDPs, that's the integrated development plans from municipalities that also drive our development as a department, we work in conjunction with municipalities when it comes to housing development or human settlements creation and other parties, as I keep on referring to that. In terms of sustainability, we have to ensure that policy, financial and environmental and institutional stability is maintained. It's very important. Otherwise, nothing could ever succeed if we aren't ensuring that our policy environment is a working one, is a productive one. Moving on quickly. Now, in terms of the mega projects, now I did make reference to housing, to our past housing projects being sporadic and fragmented all over the show. We have tried to contain that as a department through the mega projects, for instance, to say that you aren't just providing housing to your people, but you are providing human settlements where children could go to school, could play, could go to clinic, could go to hospital. That's all about that, as opposed to what happened in the past when we're just chasing production on the ground. So now we do have instruments that help us. We do have also the National Housing Code, revised 2009, that's helping us achieve that. Just quickly, I'll start from the middle of my cycle that you're seeing there in terms of the housing typologies. That's the types of housing units that we do produce as a department. So social housing, we have that as well, but the CRUs, that's your community residential units. Now that for now, we have stopped doing that as a department, because we're just working with the National Department of Human Settlements on a few policy issues to clarify the issue of the CRUs. There are a few policy hurdles that need to be ironed out there. We started working on that a few years ago as a department, but at some point we had to look back and look at the issues of policy and funding to say that, is this in line with what we want? Because there were a whole lot of differences in how other provinces were doing that. So National had to then come in and say, let's just go back and have a look at whether it is what we want that we're producing at that point in time. Also, we do have small, so what we're doing right now, just to share with you quickly, you must have heard the premier in the past few months, September, October, talking about TISH, that's a township, informal settlements, the hostel redevelopment, to say that all those people living in those areas, we need to give them housing and therefore give them back the dignity that they deserve as the people of this country. So you do have small scale rental, you do have subsidies that drive our programs as government, as a department. You do have emergency housing, for instance. You may have seen people that have been affected by flooding, for example. That's where your emergency housing would come in, for example. Again, the upgrading of informal settlements program, the UISP, we do have that as a department as well. Transitional housing too in the process, that whilst we're dealing with the challenges of flooding, fires and other things, for example, how do you then ensure that people are properly housed in the process? Gap housing, for instance, you do have the FLISP. I know it's on the far left. It's one of the programs that form part of the gap housing, the finance-linked individual subsidy program, for example, to say that people who do not qualify with the banks, for instance, to buy houses because they earn less, but also do not qualify with the department because they earn more than they don't meet the criteria. What do we do? The gap market. So we came in with a FLISP product as a department as well, as per the National Housing Code. Of course, you do have the Integrated Residential Development Program, the IRDP, that we are also implementing, and inclusionary housing. By the way, Gauteng is the only province that has challenged the class and social caste or division that still applies to some extent in the country. It hasn't been that successful, but through the mega projects as well, we can see that we are making some inroads in that regard. Just quickly moving on. Now, I did say that there are a few characteristics that we look at in the implementation of mega projects, or the characteristics that underpin the implementation of the mega projects. Just quickly, one of them being a secure and reliable biometric technology for beneficiary registration that would link subsidy to title deeds. But just to say that at this point, we have not necessarily implemented the biometric technology or the biometric system. Back in the day in 2015, when we came up with the concept of the mega project, we had good intentions to implement this technology. Again, a few challenges crept in. However, this is one thing that we still may want to look into as a department, because what you want is a smooth beneficiary registration and the issuance or the registration of title deeds, so that nobody occupies a housing unit without a sustainable form of tenure. For example, that's very, very, very key, that people do have title deeds for the space that they occupy. We're striving for complete eradication and basic service provision of informal settlements, including in situ upgrading. In situ, it's the informal settlements that already exist. However, there may be some of them, of course, would require that people be relocated to suitable places. But some of them, what you do, you build where they are. You just move the shacks around until you're done with your construction. Of course, that's very, very carefully managed to avoid accidents and other inconveniences in the process. And then, of course, I did speak to the various housing typologies that we cater to as a department, of course, for various housing market segments, including those that fall outside of the government subsidy bracket. I spoke to that as well, but also provision of integrated primary, bulk, and secondary infrastructure. I did speak to the challenges that we tend to confront there at this point in time as a department. However, we are forging ahead. We don't say because there are challenges in relation to infrastructure, and then we aren't going to implement. We do, of course, as I said, that we work with a number of role players. Remember the metros, for instance, they do have quite a formidable grant in a form of the USDG, that's the Urban Settlements Development Grant. So we also tend to tap on that, working with the metros. It's only the metros that receive that grant. So we also really try and work with the metros in ensuring that the USDG also assist our own grants as human settlements, which is the HSDG, that's the Human Settlements Development Grant. Site project office with models and architectural designs of the development, of course, that's speaking as well to the housing typologies that we do have as part of the mega projects. Of course, the issues of communication that's transparent and effective is very key. Stakeholder participation, for instance, as I said, is a non-negotiable for us as government, for us as a department as well. You have to include your communities in your developments. The PPP, that's the private, that's the public-private partnerships. For example, we do work with property developers. Remember, I've been saying this, that we work across the broader spectrum of the market, your private role players and so forth, as I have mentioned, very, very key to us. Otherwise, we're going to go back to housing again instead of moving forth to human settlements. That's where we are at the moment. So I'm just saying that we do need to put our hands together as various parties to ensure that our province and our country move forward. And that's the only way to succeed. The issue of job creation and revenue generation, I also spoke to that to say it's very, very important that also we can't be celebrating and all the time speak about the poor as though that's something that's glorified. That's why we are saying that we do have, as government, access to the funds that come through the EPWP, that's the Expanded Public Works Program, whereby people do utilize their physical power, right, to get things done. That is to do the work in construction, for instance, for example. That's your labor-intensive methods of doing work. So in our projects, for instance, as a department, we do employ local community members to then ply their trade, both skilled and unskilled. I know that we also battling on some of our projects as a department where you've got your infamous, for example, what do they call them? Business forums, which then really interfere with progress on our sites. They have stopped some of our projects, especially in Lentsoane, that's Pretoria. We are struggling there quite very much. Our progress is very much delayed because of the involvement of the infamous business forums there. Whilst by the same token, I've just said that we do involve our local community members, but business forums, there are other things there that come with an element of criminality and gangsterism. We are battling that as a department. Of course, with the mega projects, you do want, and we are achieving this. That's the culturally diverse and socially cohesive communities. You know, you find, as I said, different people of different classes and social caste, for example, you know, occupying the same space. And proper and coordinated RGR across all the spheres of government. That's the intergovernmental relations. I've been saying a lot about us working together, not just as government, but also outside government with other parties. So these are just some of the pictures, but I know that Dlozi has got much more detailed pictures than mine. These are some of the interesting pictures that depict the work that we are doing as government, as a Department of Human Settlements in Gauteng. So these are some of the mega projects. As you can see, this one is Western Borwa. It's the semi-detached or semi-detached duplex houses. And then again, Western Borwa, the standalones, as you can see here on the picture. That brings me to the end, and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vusi. That was very informative. I was actually making notes throughout, and I see there's a few questions in the chat box as well, which we will deal with at the end during the Q&A session. Dlozi, are you ready for your session?
Yes, no, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay, you can unshare for us, Vusi. Thank you. I see you've done that, and you can turn your mic and camera off as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I do hope that my presentation is visible.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone once again. So I will be going through the megacity developments that we have as a department, and also just to give more insight in terms of the practicalities that we've had from a project management perspective, and in covering what the project has experienced. So in terms of just to give a bit of background, we do know that the South African Constitution Section 26 states that everyone has a right to have access to adequate housing. Furthermore, Housing Code of 1997 is the driver of megacity developments, and the Department of Human Settlements has adopted a shift in policy strategy to take a holistic approach to implement these projects to ensure that there is that socio-economic integration within the city region. Also noting that the vision of the department is to purposely plan that megacity projects have a complete, sufficient housing, economic and social needs that are quietly provided within the developments. And the mega projects strategy is implemented by the department in collaboration with municipalities, who are key role players to ensure that there is that cohesion, as Vusi has mentioned. Also, municipalities are responsible for planning, assessment, and approvals in line with Spatial Land Use Management as Act 16 of 2013. By definition, megacities are massive housing developments that yield no less than 15,000 housing units. I think just to give then an overview on what I've presented now is what the department has noticed is that the delivery of housing units for the plan that was there to say that we will go into an area and just merely give people housing. That strategy did not work for a long time. And because it didn't work for a long time, then we had to find a cohesive way so that we are able to make sure that there are those social economic integrations that are there within people, business, and also where they stay. So with that, then a policy plan within the city of Gauteng was then established to say that projects where initially we would have a project that has about 100 houses, 1,000 houses, or maybe sometimes 2,000. Now we had to now go and find land, pockets of land, and then where we can have private developments coming on board, the municipalities coming on board, so that we are able to deliver on these projects. So what you then find, the people then that will be benefiting within this type of typologies, they will benefit 4 types of development products. One will be bonded houses. Bonded houses, these are houses where people will then be able to go in, buy the houses, and then be able to then own within that space. And then that they will then, a developer together with the department would then assist so that that bondage amount would actually not be so much. So that's how then government, through its different subsidy programs, would then offer this benefit to beneficiaries. We have the BNG, which is also called the RDP program. This RDP program, a lot of people know the department with this. So that's where a person who earns below 3,500 would rather receive a grant, and then they would then be able to receive this type of housing assistance. And then the next one will then be social housing or rental. This is when then through a municipality, management would manage the rent, but from a department's perspective, and the developer would then go into an area and then build those units, and then there would be rental stock. You also have the FLISP program. The FLISP program currently now it's known as First Home Finance. This is something that I think the people that are in this, should I say, this talk now, should be able to expose themselves to. I would then say maybe go online, check what this program offers. The reason I'm saying this is because this then is where the missing middle is called. The missing middle, meaning the people who earn above 3,500 until 22,000. That's when you will get a grant from government to then say, we'll help you on a particular bond that you have. And then it's a sliding scale program. So that sliding scale program, the higher you earn, obviously, then the lower amount of grant you will receive, but also the lower you earn, then the higher amount of grant you will receive. So these are merely some of the type of typologies that we have within mega city developments. And then we do understand that the rollout of mega city will definitely bring about social transformation and integration within the Gauteng city region on a scale never seen in any province. The reason we say that on a scale that's never seen within any province is because this type of policy program was implemented initially within Gauteng. And we've seen a number of programs that have been able to come on board and a number of land parcels that have been able to be developed. Now, this also speaks into how the type of planning that was implemented in the past, whereby this strategy aims to address and revise the apartheid era inherited spatial development planning and develop new post-apartheid integrated cities. By this, what do I mean? I mean that we do know that there are concentrated, I would call them townships. We find like Soweto, Alexander, Tembisa, where you would not have previously had that proper housing, but you just merely had people who just settled on those areas. So what the city has done is that they've then taken this policy to ensure that even people who work can be able to find areas where they're able to buy properties at an affordable rate, and they're able to also, there's a mix between those who have and those who don't have, as you've seen through the four typologies. So the areas that we cover within Gauteng, it's the 5 nodes. As you see there, there's areas within Lanseria, Malibongwe, Ntswane, in Ekurhuleni, and these are the areas where already there's been projects that have been earmarked. Currently, there's about 20 megacity projects that are on the ground, but in total, with the land portions that we have, there's a plan of about 31 megacity projects. As I mentioned, the scale differs. Initially, it was from 10,000 units, then it moved to 15. So we are trying to then grow the scale at which these projects are growing at. We do understand that within the city, there isn't a lot of, should I say, land that we are able to then, should I say, within the business nodes where we are able to build on. But what has happened is that we've tried to find areas within Western Area Bora, for example. There isn't a lot of business economy, but we're trying to establish such programs so that at least there could be some economical activities that are taking place. So some of the projects that are already on the ground, it's Riverside View Megacity Project, Clayville Megacity, Flareoff, Savannah City, Elijah Barai, Mendros, Afri Village, Rama City, Dlozi, and Western Area. So as you're seeing, this is merely a snapshot on giving you that there are projects on the ground and there are projects where people already have benefited. And these are projects where within a financial year of about 3 financial years, the department is able to allocate about 10,000 people. Vusi did mention that it was our goal rather to say that these numbers we must reach across all our programs. This number of 15,000 we must reach across all our programs. But obviously, due to either compliance, us having to get approvals from municipalities, town planning taking its time, and also obviously project implementation on the ground, some challenges that tend to be their experience within projects. That's what you then find that delay. But ultimately, as I have mentioned, the 20 projects are already there, and we are aiming to go beyond that. Now, I will be looking at, to give you guys a bit of a more perspective, we'll be going deep dive into a project that I've personally worked on, which is the Riverside Megacity Development. It's based within the north of Joburg. Should I say, if you're coming from the south, going to the north, before you get to Diepsloot, and just after Steyn City. We do know that Steyn City represents a node within the city of Joburg where it is an area that is affluent. So what the department did through private partnership with the developer and the city was that they then identified that area to then say the community of Diepsloot needs infrastructure, they need housing. So the best way that we could do we take them to an area where it's very far from businesses, as we know, the Four Ways area, and also the Midrand Centurion area, or rather do we develop something? So now you have the upper class of Steyn City, Four Ways, Dainfen area, who are able then to stay with other people who are, should I say, less marginalized, and those who are either could not have afforded a bond at Steyn City or Dainfen or the other surrounding areas. So the development is structured in such a fashion that the individuals who reside in the informal settlements can access housing opportunities in Riverside. These are people who reside in Diepsloot, and also the development intention is based on the principle of integrated development, which serves as a direct cure to former exclusionary practices and to address the practical housing backlog that exists within Diepsloot. Also, there are other areas like Rabbi Ridge, and also within Tembisa, where we have Ivory Park, where we have been able to reduce the density of people within that area to go and stay within that mega city development in Riverside. We do understand that it is also feeding into what is the future program that is also to come, which is also the Lanseria node. So this project on its own covers that should I say community base. As you see now, within locality, the project itself, in terms of, you see the Lanseria node, the Lion Park node, the Cosmos City node, and also the Broad Acres, Fourways, Kyalami, Dainfen, River Sands, and also Stain City and Diepsloot. There has been engagement in terms of, should I say, the increase of roadways that access that area. So it is future developments that are still taking place. Currently, we do know that there's the major William Nicol that sees a lot of traffic on a daily, but going forward, there will be other road sections that will be upgraded so that community can be able to get access to roadways and wherever they want to go. There is another project that's coming, which also we're estimating about 9,000 units. That is just towards the right of Diepsloot there. And then that project, it's also going to also alleviate the pressure that the area of Diepsloot already has in terms of human settlements, something that Vusi touched on with regards to rentals. It was obviously such area is an area that has a lot of rentals and the likes, but once we develop the areas that are next to it, then we will be able to reduce that density within that area. So with regards to Riverside, the development itself, the total yield is about 10,000 units, as I've said. And then as you see there within the layout plan, we are planning to have about, or rather we've actually developed this one. The project was completed last year within the RDP space, but there are some FLISP units that are still being developed within that area. So the total scope of FLISP units, these are units that are freestanding. I will show you in terms of how they look. So that's about 1,429. And then also there is multi-story social rental housing, which is about 1,500. And then the single residential units, which is about 2,900. And then the RDP stock that is there is about 4,000 units. So you do understand within a development like this, as Vusi indicated as well, it's not a project that you can easily say we'll go in, we'll go out in a matter of just 1 year. So the project itself started from planning since over 2014, 2012, 2014, before there was actually work on the ground that took place. So as a department, we are proud of such a project, and it's a project that has delivered, should I say, at a quick rate, and where even the investment has been seen within the area from an economic perspective and also from a social economic space. Just a bit of the project brief. The type of project, I have indicated that it's a top structure construction project, and then the municipality that is we've worked together with and owns the portions of land is the city of Joburg. The developer is ValueMax Northern Farms. Those are the different typologies that are there. And what we've also delivered within that project, we've connected bulk and link water connections, bulk and road and stormwater connections. There's the main substations that we had to build. We do understand, obviously, with regards to energy shortages, we also had to build the new substations and also a satellite substation. Also, there are 2 primary schools within the area, 3 secondary schools, daycares already, clinic is also something that will still be built within the area. There's a community center that's also going to be built. Parks are already there, pedestrian walks, business sites, that's already there, shopping center as well. So in terms of social amenities, that space, or rather that type of design that we've spoken about, to say the department has tried to move away from merely just going into an area, building houses, but also just putting on these other amenities. We do understand that these other amenities are either can be private partnerships, like there is a school, a Curo school there. There is also a site that is also for a government school that's also earmarked that must still be built, which will be built by Department of Education. So also like a clinic that would be built there. Either it could be a private clinic or a clinic that is community-based. So this type of programs have helped the department to be able to then have those private partnerships and public relations, which then help in us having to develop the project properly. In terms of budget, holistically, the budget of the project is about 5.1 billion. And then with the department itself, in terms of the commitment that it has had on just merely RDPs, that being about the 4,000 units, the budget that was allocated from the department was about 786 million. So you can see that this shows that it is merely not just the department that's going into this, but these projects are dependent on having those partnerships with private stakeholders and municipalities to ensure that there is that service delivery that can be delivered, and there is those opportunities of business and economic growth. With that being said, in terms of work employment, there's been about 12,000 job opportunities that have been created within the area. As I've indicated, that the project was more than 1 year. It was about 3 to 4 years, where it was then at the point of implementation, excluding obviously the professional services that were rendered there from a town planning perspective, and also design and implementation management of those services. So these are merely the SMME initiatives that have been benefited within the project. So in terms of the typology scale, how the projects look, a bird's eye view, this was during construction of one of the ERFs. There, what you're seeing is the multi-story units. These are RDP units that were there. And then here you are looking at the single residential units. So these then will be your bonded units. And within these units, then you will then have either people who qualify or don't qualify for a government bond, or rather government grant. Then if people don't qualify, then obviously you buy cash or through a loan. But if you qualify for that grant, then what we'll do, then we'll then through FLIS program and qualifying criteria, then one will receive that grant. And then now here what you're seeing is this is the rental stock, where you can go in and rent out the units, and depending on obviously your affordability, you can then be able to then get these units. These are the BNG units that I've indicated. These are the sections that were completed. This was the first phase of the project. And then at the bottom, that's the last phase of the project. These are then some of the amenities in terms of the roadway sections, and also the parks that are there. Thank you very much. So this is a bird's eye view again of one of the projects that we have, where you are able then to see how a development like this comes into realization. One of the things that I'd like to indicate is the fact that for the department to move away from merely just building stock within just areas where we have found people staying and then we'll just build, it has helped in terms of delivering rather human settlements products to people, being business, being houses, being having to bring people closer to the areas of work. So it doesn't mean that we are also not building again at informal settlements where we formalize them. So that program has not stopped, but this is merely another program that the department is looking to go towards to ensure that there is that development that's needed. We do understand that people who still need houses within South Africa, it's estimated about 1 million. So that number cannot be reached with us just building sporadically and all that. But there needs to be a whole dimension change. And through this, the department has then acknowledged that it is working. There are, yes, some loopholes where we still need to develop and we still need to change and we still to add. But so far, so good. And we are still hoping that there will come a time where within our country, human settlements and housing as a specific need is not a threat, where we merely just indicate it as a need to just people when they are an option that they can have. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody. Thanks, Nthabeleng. I'll take questions if needs be.
Thank you so much, Dlozi. That was very informative. I see hands going up and claps. So thanks for that really informative segment. I'm going to ask you and Vusi to keep your cameras on. You can unshare your presentation and we'll go through Q&A. We've received quite a few questions. Let's see how many we can cover in the 10-15 minutes remaining. So I think the first one that I'll start with is from Fezile Maki, and he's speaking on the typologies, saying what could be small-scale rentals and how are they funded, and how does gap housing differ from FLISP and social housing? I'm just going to open the floor with each of the questions, either you or Dlozi or Vusi, whichever of you are comfortable with giving responses to the questions as I feel them. Please go ahead.
All right, thanks. Sorry, let me take on the questions that you have just read out on the chat board. Just quickly on the differences or the difference between the gap housing and the FLISP market. Look, the gap housing is part of the FLISP, or the FLISP rather. It's the other way around. Sorry, FLISP is part of the gap market, as I explained. That's the finance-linked individual subsidy program. So what's happening there is that there's a qualification criteria, right? That you have to earn a certain amount of a salary per month, wherein then I think at this point in time the bracket is between 7,500 and 22,000 rand. It may have changed slightly over time, but what then you need to notice is that you do not qualify for our BNG unit. That's the Breaking New Ground unit, or the RDP unit. You don't qualify for that, but at the same time you go to the bank within that bracket, and the bank tells you that, look, it's either you are highly indebted, that sort of thing. There are also those challenges, but also you find that there isn't stock for you that is affordable with the kind of money that you have. That's where then government comes in to say that, look, we can be able to assist you financially, maybe cushion you with an amount of 80,000 rand, 100,000 rand. It depends, right, on how much you're earning and how much you qualify for, given the qualifying criteria. And then you are assisted for that. What's happening currently is that this program at the moment is a big challenge, because the majority of the developers are saying, look, we aren't interested. It's not financially viable for us. The profit margins are very, very meager. Therefore, we can't take on this. So now you can see that then again, the scale needs to be enlarged. It needs to be expanded so that then the developers then are enticed to come back into that market and then service that market. In terms of social housing, you know how this works. For example, you have to be a service provider who comes in then with a proposal to the department. Now, we must just recall, you do have an institution by the name of SHRA, that's Social Housing Registration Authority, that's running with social housing. The department isn't doing that at this point in time, because now that's the mandate of the SHRA. The SHRA is doing that. I've just spelled that out, Social Housing Registration Authority. There are requirements. However, now what would happen then? Again, there's a qualifying criteria for you to be able to access those rental units. You rent, again, the state subsidizes you there. It's different scales. It's a range as well, depending on where you qualify, and then you do have access to that. Also, the GPF, that's the Gauteng Partnership Fund. That's an entity that our department created a few years ago. They also provide rental and social housing again. So I'm just saying that you can approach the GPF, that's the Gauteng Partnership Fund, to get more information on that as well. But as I've said, you do have the SHRA and our department, of course. We could find you the right colleagues and put you directly with them to speak to them on this one. But the SHRA and the GPF are the best bet. Now, there are, just speaking off the cuff, I know a few areas that Dlozi also made mention of in his presentation, whereby we do have the rental housing units. Kempton Park is one of them, Pretoria North, Pretoria CBD, for instance. But again, in Vanderbijl Park, I know of Bedwood Park that does have the rental stock, for example. Now, it depends as well on the size of these units, that is the rental per month. But remember, now the figures that I'm going to share with you do exclude rates and taxes, the services, for example. That's between, say, it starts from 1,000 rand to 5,000 rand affordable housing. You know, just check again with the GPF there. Yeah, let me stop here for now. I think I've covered the ground. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I think we're just going to rush into the others just to see how many we can slot in with the minutes remaining. Stacey Ingram says, to discuss the question of informal settlements, that I've been on site and heard of a number of workers that are given the subsidies to pay rent and good accommodation, but they prefer to live in informal settlements for less rent and save the balance of the rent or send it home. We must be aware of forcing people to pay higher rents in places that make the people feel better about their accommodation. Do you have a comment on that before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, no, I think look, there's something that we have discovered, and that is when it comes to people having to choose where to stay, it's not necessarily something that you, as an outsider, you are able to decide or why they should stay there and the likes. But what the department has done is they've tried to provide a holistic approach in terms of helping to deal with human settlements. And this, a lot of people, there are some who will then say, look, I want to rent. Some will say, I want to buy. But if you don't offer that opportunity to somebody who says, I want to rent, and then you then indicate to them to say, no, you must buy only, or if you don't buy only, therefore then you must be at a below, should I say, payment margin. Then what you're then going to find is that you will not cater for that missing middle. So what government, it has noted that there are people who are not taking advantage of these opportunities, but as they are, some who are taking advantage of them are not using them effectively the way they were intended to do. So I don't think it's something that for government you can easily say this is the amount you must pay or rental, and because remember it's a game of numbers as well, to say you can't rent at areas where, or rather you can't put people in an area where rent is too low, and when it's too low then you then gonna put them far away from their places of work, and then from places of work then it means that now you are going back again to have people who are now going to stay, to say they're going to stay at informal settlements, so which are closer now to areas of work. So I think it's something that we need obviously to encourage people, but as a sense of policy structure, then it will become a bit difficult to say how do you manage that one. Thanks.
Thanks, Dlozi. Thanks for that answer. Patsy Masimirembwa asks and says, how are you dealing with the challenges with bulk infrastructure to provide services such as water, sanitation, electricity, especially in local municipalities? I guess in addition to that, a question that I would have asked related is what does that relationship actually looks like with those parallel departments such as water and sanitation?
Okay, must I take it or you'll take it?
You can go for it, Dlozi.
Okay,
Thank
cool,
you.
no problem. So what's happening is that from a municipality perspective, municipalities get grants separately, right? And then also government departments as well get grants separately. So what we then do initially when a project starts is to engage all the municipalities to say, look, here's a project that we are planning. And then that goes into also our pre-feasibility studies to then say, these are all the entities. So the comments are put towards them to then say, can you please avail that budget? Because from a Department of Human Settlements perspective, what would happen on our space is that we would not also give the grant at a, like, let's say now with that 700 million. That 700 million would come in drips and drabs in terms of on a financial year basis. So the project is based on that. But when municipalities are struggling to then provide that bulk, that's when then they would then say, okay, let's hold back on the project, or rather than so that until there comes a time where we are able to implement the project, then we can then initiate that program. Thanks.
Okay, I think let's go into just municipalities a bit more with the 2 minutes remaining. There's a question that was asked by Lungisa, and he says, how does the department provide funding for bulk infrastructure requirements for areas or municipalities classified as non-metros? So if USDG only caters for metros, which funding model or source do you then tap into to fund bulk for those municipalities outside metros like the West Rand?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Nthabi. Dlozi, I would like to take on that one. You can add afterwards. Yeah, no. Thanks for the question again. Well, we do have what we call as part of the HSDG, that's the Human Settlement Development Grant, what we call the OPSCAP. Not the OPSCAP, sorry, that's for a different purpose. But we have been allowed, it started a few years ago by the National Department of Human Settlement. So it's part of the policy now that we then take about 5% of the HSDG, and then we distribute that to the municipalities in need. Of course, it's the non-metros, because remember, the metros, as we did say initially, they do benefit from the USDG. As Lungsani pointed out correctly to say that, the smaller local municipalities do not have access to the USDG, then what's the alternative? It's exactly what I'm saying, to say that the 5% of the sliced off the HSDG is then provided to those or allocated to those needy municipalities, so that then they can get on with the provision of bulk infrastructure. It's happening on the West Rand, for example. Millions of rands have gone into that space. So yes, we are doing that. Policy does allow us as a department to do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Vusi. We've got time for 2 more questions max. If you can give a minute response to each, and then we'll start concluding after that. The one is an interesting one from Londe Gatanjekwayo. And they say, looking at Gauteng specifically with its challenge of urbanization, it's very understandable why the department advocates for megacity development transition. However, there's also a school of thought which argues that small-scale developments, that's infill development, densification, conversion, should not be abandoned, as these respond to local housing needs. So from the department's perspective, what does the focus on mega projects mean for small-scale developments or more hybrid development methods moving forward?
Okay. quick one. I think one thing that we must understand is that the department is necessarily not foregoing all programs, right? But rather it is introducing new ones to cater to the demand that's currently there, which is why we indicated that there are informal settlements upgrade, there are rental, should I say, no, not rental, hostel redevelopment programs. So we are still going on to some of these other ones. And also, we believe that human settlements is not merely a one-size-fits-all. You know, different areas will require different strategies, but as a department, we need to make sure that we've got enough policies to be implemented so that we are able to serve rather the greater need of the people. So that's we are not foregoing everything, but this is part of them that we've added because it was not there previously. Thanks.
Thanks, Rosie. And then lastly, and I must say I apologize for the questions that have come in after your sessions, and perhaps we want to extend the next, if there is interest in the next, from 90 minutes to 2 hours, just to allow for enough Q&A and this kind of discussion, because I think it's really useful. But let's just take one more and then we'll call it a day for this one. Gordon has actually a two-part question that I'd like to field and combine into one. And he says, what is the intention of the upgrading of the roadways? Is this premised on ensuring that sustainable transport, in other words, walking, cycling, and public transport is the fundamental departure point? And further to this relates to the 15-20-minute city precinct concept, whereby all amenities and work opportunities are within a 15 to 20-minute walking or cycling distance of where people live. So the Riverside project seems to touch on this. Do you have a comment for that as a final question and comment?
Okay. Yes, no, that's correct. The reason there was that upgrade is to ensure that also that scale of community is catered for, and there are walkways, there are cycling areas. So that's first and foremost to ensure that there's that multilateral use of services within providing transportation mechanisms in the area, and then also. If you look at the bigger scale of Riverside, as I mentioned, there's Dainfen, there's Riversense that's developing as well. There's an industrial section there. There's a big micro in there. There's a shopping complex that there. So we are trying to then make sure that things are intertwined. Obviously, you will not have everything, but you do already have existing, which is the nice thing about where Riverside is located, for example, is you've got already an existing business node that's there. You know, there's offices, parks, there's an airport not far away from, which is Lanseria Airport. So you've got already these economic amenities that are there. So now it's merely for us to be able to expand in other areas and provide that assistance to the communities that we serve as a department. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. And on that note, I hope that answers you, Gordon, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. It was really informative again. And the webinar is CPD accredited, and certificates will be sent to the audience members who stayed the duration of the session. And today's webinar will also be uploaded on our YouTube page. So if you search SAICE TV on YouTube, you'll be able to find us there. So many thanks from behalf of SAICE to you, Dlozi and Vusi, our keynote speakers for tonight. Thanks again to RIB for sponsoring this event, and also thanks to the team in the back end that you can't see, Sbongile and SWM, for the technical assistance in planning and carrying out this webinar. Thank you to everyone who's made time to tune in tonight, and we really appreciate your support. If there's interesting topics that you'd like us to cover, please email marketing@saice.org.za, and we'll be sure to include those in the upcoming schedule of webinars that that we embark on. But from my side and on behalf of SAICE, we'd like to say thank you, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Sibongile will actually flight a presentation deck detailing all the SAICE events that are happening shortly. So if you do have a few minutes, hang out and see those as they go. Otherwise, from us, good night and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nthabeleng. Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Sibo, don't worry about it. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we hope you have a good evening. I'm going to end the session now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nthabeleng. Bye-bye.